creativity comes from being bored, and I really make myself have that time to be bored a lot, actually. I do it more and more because I find it the most exciting time for me creatively. And also, I think you need to replenish creativity. It's something you have to fill up.
Welcome to Priorities, the podcast about the things in life that really matter. I'm your host, journalist and coach Lily Silverton, and each week, along with a roster of incredible guests, I'll be exploring how priorities inform and transform our lives, sharing mindset tips, strategies, and inspiration to help you prioritise your own life. We'll be covering what we think is important and unimportant, what we'd like to work on more, and the moments that changed our priorities and lives forever. I hope you enjoy. My guest today is photographer, publisher, and film director Rankin. One of the world's most famous iconographers, he's captured everyone from the Queen to Kate Moss to David Bowie and Kendall Jenner. Aside from creating campaigns for the likes of Nike, Dove, and Comic Relief, his work has been in every notable publication you can think of, from Vogue to GQ, and he's exhibited at art galleries worldwide, including MoMA in New York and the V&A in London. In 1992, Rankin co-founded the seminal culture magazine Dazed and Confused, and has since published the likes of Another and Another Man, as well as over 40 books, and the biannual fashion, culture, and lifestyle print and digital platform Hunger, where for 4 years I worked as the features director. So he's also my old boss. Hi, Rankin. Welcome.
Hi, Lily.
Nice to have you on.
I'm excited to be here.
Oh, it's so nice to chat to you. How's your day been so far? Where are we? 11 a.m. on a Monday.
Good, yeah. I've walked the dogs. It was a nice long walk. Had a senior management meeting, and now talking to you.
Excellent. Are you a routine kind of person? I guess with dogs, you'll always have a routine.
Yes, I am. I think I was a routine person before I had the dogs, but now I've got them. It's very much, especially during the week, it's a routine of going out very early and walking them. Normally as early as I can, because I've got 4, and if you take 4 dogs out, it just gets really hectic with other dogs because they're a pack essentially, and they get, one of them gets very defensive, and so it's really easy to walk them very early when it's quiet.
I find it hard walking one dog in terms of keeping them under control. So
you've got a baby, it's different.
Yeah, and wait till I have a pack of them as well.
Yeah, once you've got a couple, I mean, I think it gets easier as well. I definitely found when I had my child all those years ago that the older they got, the easier it got, and the more there were, the more you have with you, the easier it is. But dogs are now my children, so I really love, especially my new one who I got last October. The October before last, I mean, and he's the love of my life at the moment. So,
so actually, you've told me that one of your main priorities is your dogs.
I would say, it's probably top 2.
Why are they so important to you? Have you always had dogs?
Yeah, my family and then my dogs, I would say. I had dogs as a child, and then I didn't for a number of years. And then when I got married, when I started going out with my wife, my now wife, she had a dog, so it came into the family, whether I liked it or not. And then once we got together and got married, we got another dog, so we had 2, and that's what's that? 16 years now. So yeah, for the last 16 years, I've had dogs.
Why do you feel they're so important? I think so many people, dogs resonate, of course, in terms of like supporting their general health, both physical and mental. Do you feel that?
Definitely, especially in lockdown, they were pretty much a lifesaver for me. Walking them, obviously, the health value of walking them minimum an hour a day, because I've got whippet, so you have to really make sure they get a lot of exercise. And but also just that period of time where I am essentially sort of bored, really. I'm not thinking about anything to do with anything executional, or replying to emails, or even shooting I'm literally just walking my dogs. Sometimes I'll listen to books or podcasts, or a lot of the time, like this morning, I listened to a bit of Don McCullen's autobiography, but most of the walk I didn't do anything. I just sort of played with the dogs. And I find that I call it the joy of missing out. And I really like that time. In fact, I kind of try and have more of it every day if I can.
Yeah, and I mean, I've worked with you, so I know how busy you normally are, and so how important those spaces must be for you to create for yourself.
Yeah, I find myself the most creative on those walks. So I find myself going over things and coming up with ideas. And I tend to read. I read a lot of audiobooks, so I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And I find those very inspiring, and I always listen off subject. So I don't listen to things about photography very often. The Don McCullen one is a unique one-off. It just popped up on my Audible, and I thought, yeah, I haven't listened to that. That's strange. But normally I'm listening to kind of, like I listened to the Mark Carney lectures recently, and I tend to listen to lots of different things, and I find that very inspiring. So I would say about half the time I'm walking, listening to something, and half the time I'm being bored and trying to think of things.
Boredom is so important.
I really agree. And I've really, especially in lockdown, I think I've really become very happy with being bored and being on my own, and I've made time for myself. When we went back, I made sure I spent at least 3 days a week in the country. I've got a house in the country, and I made sure that I had gaps in the day, and I made sure that I was really focused on, I don't know, my own headspace, I suppose, with the dogs a lot.
You definitely see it with kids as well. Watching them get bored during lockdown, but just during life generally, and how important that can be for creativity.
Yes, I really agree with that. And I think we've talked in the past about my kind of feelings about social media and this always on kind of attitude to news and media and sociability, and I just find it very damaging. So I really make an effort not to, like, for example, I might look at my emails once when I'm out for a walk. I'll really try hard not to check in, and I'll limit the amount of time I spend on social media, which was difficult actually during lockdown. It was really hard, but I've actually found myself naturally kind of find it less and less interesting. But of course, unfortunately, I have to look at it because of my job. So if I don't know what's going on, I can't really respond to things properly. So I see it as a bit more like work as opposed to sort of filling spaces. But yeah, no, creativity comes from being bored, and I really make myself have that time to be bored a lot. Actually, I do it more and more because I find it the most exciting time for me creatively. And also I think you need to replenish creativity. It's something you have to fill up. I don't know if people understand that, that don't have creative jobs. They don't understand it's not like a sort of never-ending well. You need to fill it up. You need the rain. You need the time. You need the energy for it. It's really important, and I've really come to realize that more and more as I've become more aware of it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched you work flat out for months, years, with barely taking a break. How has that changed, first of all, for you? And also, how do you manage that with your creativity of constantly needing to come up with new ideas?
I think probably, I mean, I think when we got married, did make a conscious effort to make sure that my weekends were free. And I think the failings of my previous relationships made me realize that I had to, you need to put time and effort into relationships, and you can't just expect them, especially when you're a bit of a workaholic like I was. You can't expect that to just kind of sort itself out. You need to create the space to do that. And I think in doing that, creating that space, what I then did was realize, actually, this is really healthy for me as well, for my ability to come up with things and enjoy it a bit more as well. So, it was an unusual transition. And then, of course, with lockdown, it was kind of enforced because of, the situation. So I actually think that was really healthy for me. And I started to do things like still lifes, and I started to, I don't know, take pictures just for me, not for the job, which was really healthy as well. So I think that I've tried to get that balance right since maybe June last year, and I think I'm doing a better job of it than I've ever done before. But yeah, it's something I never thought I would do or need, and now I know how much I get from it. So I wish I'd done it before, really.
Mm. That's brilliant that you've got the insight to do it now. I thought what you said earlier as well about trying, sort of really putting that effort behind not checking your emails or not going on social media, and how that can get easier and easier. And I think that's so true, that at first it requires quite a lot of effort to stay away from the spaces that our boredom would normally occupy, because in our modern lives we have every opportunity to distract ourselves. And it takes effort to not do that.
Yeah, one of the things I find really, the one thing that I can't seem to give up, and it really annoys me, is looking at social media when I'm watching a really good film. And my wife and I both do it, and it's something that I actually physically try to stop myself doing, because it really irritates me that I do it. And I also think if you've got that kind of brain that can do 2 or 3 things at once, which I'm really lucky that I've got that. But at the same time, I'm unlucky, because it means that I do tend to. That's actually when I tend to be the weakest, with my kind of sort of discipline around it, because I could easily go for a day without looking at, I don't know, Instagram or anything else actually. And then in the evening, when I'm not doing anything, I'm watching something, that's when I'm like the most susceptible to it. But I've been trying to discipline myself not to do that as well. So, but I just find it. I wish it wasn't my job in a way, I wish it wasn't my job in a way that I have to do that. I have to know what's going on, and unfortunately, I work with people that don't know and understand it, and it really impacts on how they do their jobs, because it's so much part of how we communicate with each other these days. So if you don't have that knowledge, it is really very detrimental to your ability to do what you're trained to do.
Absolutely. First of all, you got to leave your phone outside the room when you're watching TV. That's the only thing. That's what I do. Just leave it in another room. It's the only way I cannot touch it. But also, do you find social media a source of inspiration at the same time?
Occasionally, yes. I mean, I have 2 accounts. One of which is I follow things that interest me, and I find that account much more rewarding than the kind of the more sort of front-facing one, the one which is about, retaining those relationships that you have to do. I find that one kind of more of a work one, whereas the I've got a kind of flower account, which is very small, and I follow much less people. The people that I follow, I've been quite choosy about, and I find that one very rewarding. But it's just part of my job now. So it's really, I really don't enjoy it as part of my job, but I have to do it to make sure that I know what's going on. I'm kind of against it all in principle because I think it's really damaging, but unfortunately the rest of the world doesn't necessarily agree with me. So I have to do it, unfortunately.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it develops in the next few years and changes because it's still so much in its infancy.
Definitely. I've always said that we're all toddlers in this world. Doesn't matter if you're 8 or 80. We're all dealing with it in the same way because it's also new and it's also difficult to navigate. Essentially, it's a very complicated way of us all communicating, but because also it's really driven by photography and it really uses photography. So on a kind of ideological level or a kind of ethical level, I'm fascinated by that and what it means and how important it is. And, so I'm a massive Adam Curtis fan and I'll be really reading lots and lots of different books about it because, whether it's Yaron, what's his name, Garnier, Yaron Lanier, is that it? Or Tristan Harris, or I'm always reading that stuff because I think it's really important to try and understand it. But yeah, we're all toddlers essentially.
So talk to me a little bit about work, because that's obviously another huge priority for you. Did you always think you'd be a photographer?
No, definitely not. No, I think I came to photography very late and I was very lucky really to get the opportunity to do it. And it was really kind of a combination of luck and being put into a halls of residence with a load of art students when I was doing accountancy at college and just really, thinking that it would possibly be something I could do because I really loved film, but having no connection with it. And I think in a way that was really beneficial that I didn't have any sort of, there was nobody in my family that studied arts. There was no history of arts in any of my sort of extended family. So when I came to it, I was kind of a blank canvas and it was really rewarding to jump into it. But it also kind of made me, I had these kind of preconceptions about photography that were very different to what it ended up being. And, a lot of them came from TV and films and Olympus camera adverts about David Bailey. So I kind of grew up in public in a way, which was quite interesting. And also because we started Dazed and Confused really early, we were all at college. We did everything essentially in the public view. So we made a lot of mistakes early on, but yeah, when I found it, it was like a light bulb moment. It was I can remember it, really well today. I can really picture myself back there, and when I looked through the lens and clicked the shutter, and it was really, it was like kind of a gift, really, to be somebody to be able to do something that I loved. And I loved it immediately. Like the minute I got that first picture, I was like, this is it. And it was like an addiction. And then, I was just really lucky, So I never really thought of it as work. And that's, I guess, why I became a bit of a workaholic, because it wasn't really work. It was doing the thing that I loved and really enjoyed and really was passionate about and got a buzz from and still get a buzz from.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Do you still get that feeling? Maybe not with every single photo you take, but with many of the photos you take, do you still get that feeling that you did at college?
Yeah, no, I do. And I think what was interesting about going into lockdown was I didn't last more than a week without wanting to take a picture. So that proved to me that feeling was something that was, innate within me. Like I was, it's part of me, that need and desire to be able to capture the image and create something. Is within me, and I suddenly I wasn't getting paid for it, and the burden of the kind of, I guess the kind of the burden of the commercialism wasn't there, and I think I probably took more pictures, and I didn't have an assistant or a group of assistants, and I didn't have a technical digital person. I had to kind of sort of almost learn everything again, but it was really interesting how fast I got it. I picked up my camera literally the first week of lockdown, and started to take pictures, I think, but the end of the week after, and the camera was there, and I kind of created this. It was in a room, and I just kept thinking, I'm going to go and take a picture. I've got to go and take a picture. It's like a need, it's like a desire or a need to do it. And what was really lovely was the minute I started using everything, I was like, I don't actually need anybody else. I just can do this on my own. And I started to be quite experimental with what I was doing, and something that I'd wanted to do for a while, which was take pictures of flowers. Suddenly became my project for the spring, and it was incredible. And I came back from it sort of with this renewed energy for what I loved and what I still love. So I did a book of them and created, I guess, 2 potential exhibitions of the work, and it all came from this just desire and need to make images. And I think that probably that was one of the most eye-opening moments for me as a creative, because to that point it was a job, and I do a lot of personal projects, as you know, but this was purely just for me. There was no reason or rationale for doing it apart from I wanted to do it. So I still get a buzz, and even commercial. I mean, I can't even. And it's funny because I make films as well, but I don't have that same need and desire to make them the way that I have with photography.
My work centres on helping people better navigate this challenging modern world, so I'm very excited that this episode of Priorities is sponsored by Anatomy, a London-based modern apothecary that provides natural solutions to support the stresses of daily life. Anatomy's range of vitamins, health supplements, and therapeutic essential oils have been developed with the help of sports scientists, nutritionists, and aromatologists, and they combine the best of nature and science to create products that support your essential health and well-being. I've been using their defense and immune support vitamins all winter, and I love their sleep and recovery oils. I put a little of their blue chamomile insomnia blend on my wrists and the soles of my feet before I get into bed, and always find it helps settle my body and mind. Anatomy are kindly offering any Priorities listener 20% off their first order with the code LILY20. Check them out on www.anatomy.co. It must have been incredibly freeing for you, because you have gone from being a solo photographer to having a huge company where you have so many people working for you, creative agency, a magazine, so much around that brand.
Yeah.
Just be able to step away from that for a moment.
Yeah, it was good, and it was scary, because obviously it was scary for everybody, but and we weren't sure if we would have a business by the end of it, but we do. And the other thing I did was I asked if I could, because I'd done a bit of work for Public Health England, and I said, oh, do you mind if I go around the country and do some photographs of frontline workers with the NHS? And they said yes. So towards the end of lockdown, I got to do that as well, which I did for free, obviously, and we paid for all of our expenses. But again, it was doing something because I loved doing it, and I wanted to be part of something to do with helping people, as opposed to just kind of sitting in a room taking photos of flowers. But yeah, I mean, it was rewarding. I don't know if I was scared, like everybody was scared, I think, which was tough. But luckily, my wife's a herbalist and nutritionist, so she got me on some herbs that were really good for kind of calming me down. So that was really, really, really. She had to wean me off them in the end. She said you'll get addicted to them, but I was lucky. I was really lucky because that anxiety that I think everybody was going through, I kind of dealt with it by doing these different things. And then, of course, I still had all those people working for me because we didn't lose anybody. But I wasn't in a room with them every day, and it was really good just to have a camera on my own. I started talking to the flowers, which was a bit weird.
Could have been the herbs that Thule gave you.
Yeah, I don't think it was the herbs. I think it was just me. I made them all portraits, so they all became characters in my mind. But it was really healthy. It was really, I would really recommend it if you're a photographer out there, because there's something brilliant about just being on your own and taking the picture.
And the NHS project you did was fantastic. One of the things I loved so much when I worked with you, and continue to, but is your commitment to, obviously you've shot some of the most traditionally beautiful people in the entire world, most beautiful models, but you've always been so interested and so committed to shooting ordinary people or people you consider interesting, and always treated them the same.
I don't really see the difference. I guess that's the thing for me, especially now. I think it's more even, and this idea of celebrity has the bubbles burst a little bit, I think, over the last year, which I think is really healthy as well. I think it was getting to the point where it was to its remote. I'd literally just watched the Britney documentary over the weekend, and it's extraordinary, the way that she's been treated by people. So I think that it was time for. I just think that the world needed the world wanted a bit of a pause, So I mean, Mother Earth wanted a bit of a pause, and just a reminder of this is not. You're all here at my kind of behest, So you better shape up. And I think I think a lot of people have. Taking that as a kind of wake up call. I definitely have taken it as a wake up call. But yeah, no, I love doing things like that. I love that NHS project. It was also personally, and a lot of these things are personally rewarding. That's the thing that people have to understand. It's like when you go to the Congo, or you go to Kenya, or you go anywhere with Oxfam, or you do something for, I don't know, MenCap, or they're super rewarding because you get this amazing insight into people's lives, and it really reminds you that you're just a human being and that you're super important in a bubble in London. And what was great about this one was I got to meet doctors and nurses and porters and talk to them about how they were dealing with this virus, and it was really personally very sort of it made me feel less fearful of it, because they said just do these 3 things that everyone's telling you to do and it will be fine. So it was just really healthy as well for me, but they were all amazing. Yeah Really incredible.
Okay, moving on to your final priority, which is family, of course.
Yes. What do you say about that?
Did you always want a family? Did you know you wanted a family when you were younger? Was it something that sort of was at the forefront of your mind for a long time, or?
No, I don't think so. I think this is a bit of a tougher one for me to talk about, really, because I think that I kind of messed up, in my first few relationships. So I didn't really do very well as a parent initially, because I was obsessed by work, and I think that I couldn't really leave it at work. I brought it home with me, and I was very obsessed by kind of sort of being successful, really, not just being a photographer, but being a successful photographer. But I think I was always looking for the right person. So I think once I found that person, Julie, who's my wife now, I think that I think I was just ready to settle down, and I was ready to be committed, and I was ready to. I think it was also my age. I met her when I was 36 or 37, I think, and I think I'd had like a bit of a rough ride, sort of the first, for the last 6-7 years, actually. The first 10 years were kind of like sort of from 18 to 28 was really great. And then 28 to sort of 36 was rough. It was really rough. And so when I met her, that was pretty rough as well, to be fair, to be honest. But I think that once we decided to get married, and she said yes, I think that was it for me. And I think one of the other interesting things actually is, like, during lockdown, is that I was just really nervous that she would just be like, what the hell have I done? Like, I have to live with this guy every day. But weirdly, I mean, especially for the first 5 months, I think her mum was really ill as well, and unfortunately passed away. And that was a really difficult time for both of us. And what's really interesting is that then we became much, much stronger. So I think we were lucky in a sense that this happened, and it made us kind of confront stuff that you could easily tiptoe around. Like, what's your kind of 10-year plan, and stuff that you don't necessarily sit down and go, okay, so what's the deal? Where are we going? What are we doing, etc., etc. So you take maybe people for granted, and I think that once we'd had those types of conversations, it made us much stronger. So I think that although it's been absolutely awful, and I wish it hadn't happened to everybody, especially the people that have really suffered from it or died from it. I do think that I always try to look at the kind of glass half full, So I've really found that we've been able to connect in a way that I don't think we would have been able to connect. It would have maybe taken a bit longer for us to connect and to be able to have those conversations about commitment and stuff like that. So I mean, that it's after a long time as well. It's not like yesterday.
How have your priorities changed throughout your life? You mentioned before that you had quite a difficult time from sort of mid-20s onwards, which I think can be the case for a lot of people. It's quite a confusing time. How have your priorities changed since then? What are the steps that you've taken to help your mental health and moving forward?
Well, I think probably the best thing that I've done is just sort of take more time for myself and less kind of living life in that faster lane, which was, it was fun. In my early 20s, it was fun and I enjoyed it. And I think that probably, since the age of 40, I definitely was like, right, I'm ready to kind of move into a different gear. And I think and I think being more sort of, introspective and thoughtful, and and therapy. I've done a lot of. You wouldn't call it conventional therapy, but I've had a lot of. Guess what you call training, and I've taken kind of business. The thing that made me the most frustrated and upset was business. And so I've done a lot of training and therapeutic work around that. And I call it therapy, but most people would just say it's training. But being able to talk to two people, I've got two people that I talk to, and being able to kind of consider things and work things out and try and get underneath the surface of why I get frustrated or irritated or can't communicate or can't get the best out of people, or those things have been really helpful for me personally. And I think that was a decision that I made probably when I hit 40, where I just said, I'm going to try and look at myself more. I'm going to try and hold a mirror up to myself more. And that kind of sort of process of doing that and being a bit more reflective definitely meant that I went on to do this therapy, and the therapy has been the most beneficial thing that I've ever done around myself and my own personal development. And I also think that the idea of not stopping personal development, like you're never fully formed, you're never fully baked. It's not. It's a constant kind of development or change, and especially in my job, I think you have to shape shift anyway a lot to understand what the kind of the world of the media and communication needs. So you've got to be able to hear things from different perspectives, and I think doing that really, really helped me. I would highly recommend therapy to anyone that's not done it.
Yeah, definitely. Has there been a time in your life where you talk about change a lot, both in your industry and also in your personal life? Has there been a moment where your priorities have shifted suddenly? Seems like...
No, never shift. Never. I mean, when we had Lyle, which was 96, I think there was definitely kind of a move from me to do more work that was not just kind of shallow portraiture and fashion in the kind of celebrity media, or the sort of magazine business, but to do more balanced work that gave back to the community or gave back to culture or, the world. So I definitely made that decision when he was born to do that. And then I kind of carried that out through the kind of late 90s and noughties. But no, there was nothing that, it was always gradual with me. So, but there was definitely, I think, I mean, I've had moments, we've all had our sleepless nights where we've woken up and said, I'm going to do this a bit more, I'm going to do that a bit more. And I've definitely had some of those that have made me make decisions about myself and about where my priorities lie. And I, I've always been about trying to find the positive in every situation. But yeah, I mean, therapy definitely was the thing that turned me from being very kind of frustrated with myself and with stuff in the business to trying to always find solutions in that area.
Finally, Rankin, is there an area or something that you'd like to prioritize more? Is that something you think about?
Definitely. I think that my sort of real need and desire at the moment is to kind of give give myself a bit of space, not to. Sorry, that's my dog.
Which one?
It's Beans, the grey whippet.
Yeah.
Just having a little shake. I think, I photographed Eminem once, and he said something that it's so simple, but it's really, I think it was really insightful. Probably the most insightful thing someone famous has ever said to me. And he seemed really down when I was photographing him. And I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "I'm just bored of myself." And at the time, it was like, wow, that's quite a tough and profound thing to say. But I think having talked about myself a lot for the last sort of 10 years, whether it's in interviews, I always used to think interviews were like therapy, but actually therapy is better therapy than anything. I think just kind of, I don't know, like I've done a lot of that this year. I've done a lot of the doing interviews or doing TV shows or whatever. And actually I just kind of want to give myself a bit of space, really. So I think that's the thing. And I think the more I do give myself space, the better I find my work becomes. So yeah, I think that's probably the one thing that I want to work on more.
Bit more space. Sounds like you're getting it a bit with the dogs.
I'm definitely walking more. My step count has gone up over 11,000 a day. So
I feel like mine's down to about 5 at the moment. 5 steps, not 5,000. 5 steps. Just to clarify that one.
I don't know. It just feels like there's a lot of anxiety around at the moment, and it's all really, it's very, very valid. Like I was on a Zoom about 3 weeks ago, and I was doing it all day. And eventually on the last one, I was like, why do I feel so anxious? Why am I? And I'm not really that anxious a person. I'm more analytical than anxious. So I overanalyze things. I don't necessarily get anxious about them. But I just thought, if I'm getting anxious, then the people that are really anxious are probably at boiling point of anxious. So I think anxiety is the big problem that I think we're all having. And I think that's why I'm saying, to me, the way to deal with that is to create space for myself to either go for a walk or read a book that's the other funny thing. It's like I'm a voracious reader. Like I love reading so much. And when the first lockdown happened, I couldn't read for the first month and a half. I just couldn't get into books, and it took me a lot of effort to get over that. And it's like, I do find that I'm nowhere near as into it as I was before lockdown, so I think that's what I'm looking for, is that space to kind of make time for thinking about things that are not work or not personal or not personal life or not family, but like actually just getting and they're not films that are kind of about escapism, but those things that make you, they make you think about something different. I love the idea of that. So that's what I mean when I say space, and also just not thinking about myself or my work, or but thinking about something different. So that's what I think I'm going to be working on.
Sounds good. Sounds really good. Rankin, it was so nice to chat to you and catch up.
Oh, so lovely to speak to you.
Thank you so much. And
thank you so much.
Looking forward to seeing the Flowers book and hopefully the exhibition at some point. And I'm sure all the other brilliant projects that you're working on going forward.
Oh, thanks, Lily. Appreciate that.
All right, Rankin, take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode of Priorities, I'd really appreciate it if you could make it your priority today to hit subscribe and also rate and review, as this helps other people find it. Need a little incentive? Every month, I offer one free 6-month membership to my online studio, Mindful Moment. All you have to do is hit subscribe, rate, review the podcast, and then email a screenshot of your review to podcast@lilysilverton.com for a chance to win. Thank you so much for listening. Take care.